Live from WRTV Indianapolis, your exclusive News Star station. Howard Caldwell, Clyde Lee, meteorologist Bob McLain, and Ed Sorensen Sports. This is Channel 6 News.
Good evening to you. I'm Clyde Lee.
And I'm Howard Caldwell, and here's what's happening tonight. Professional wrestlers say it's just a gimmick, but it's no gimmick for a preacher in Delaware County. The man plans to give a life history testimonial about his sinful days as Gorgeous George, the famous wrestler. And that's raising a few eyebrows. Cy Jenkins reports tonight from Daleville.
The First Baptist Church of Daleville, we were told, hasn't had much trouble this week attracting people for its fall revival.
How are you tonight?
It's fine. How are you?
Oh, just great.
They're all here to see a far from typical evangelist, a professional wrestler turned minister. And you may have heard his name, Gorgeous George.
It seems to me like from time to time the media sticks a snake out. Well, this guy here is making a living, and he's not what he represents to be, and he's doing it in the name of the religion, so for the good of the people, you know, the big brother syndrome, he must be exposed. But I did wrestle as Gorgeous George.
That may surprise older professional wrestling fans who remember this man as Gorgeous George, one of TV's first celebrities, the famous Gorgeous George Waggoner.
I claim I was famous, too. I wrestled in International Amphitheater in Chicago. I wrestled in Indianapolis back in the early 50s.
All together, praise Him, praise Him.
The Daleville Church, according to the pastor, accepts Grant's explanation, which Grant says he's had to give often to skeptical reporters around the country. You see, Gorgeous George Waggoner died 23 years ago, while Gorgeous George Grant is still delivering some pretty tough takedowns.
And I tell you what, I'll stop this drug pushing in America real quick.
Amen.
I can stop it nationwide in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, no more drug traffic. 6 weeks. Of course, I'll be getting Christmas cards and birthday cards from the undertakers for the next few years. Amen. That's God's way.
In Daleville, Cy Jenkins, Channel 6 News. If campaign fundraising and spending is any measure of results, the Indiana Senate campaign should be a landslide. New figures released tonight show incumbent Senator Dan Quayle has raised well over $2 million, while his Democratic opponent, Jill Long, has raised just a little more than $100,000. When it comes to cash on hand, the situation favors Quayle even more. Quayle still has more than $500,000. Long has less than $2,000. The latest polls favored Quayle almost 2-1. Howard?
The state of Indiana is doing quite well in the tourism business, but it could be doing better. Those are the results of a $40,000 study that will be released tomorrow. Some of the findings: there aren't enough motel rooms in many counties, and almost half the visitors to Brown County come from Indiana. It should be a colorful weekend in Brown County, meanwhile, and points north in the state. The Department of Natural Resources says leaf colors should reach their peak by this weekend in the northern half. The DNR says this year's fall colors have been delayed by warm, wet weather in late September and early October. If you'd like the latest fall foliage information, the Resources Department has a special hotline you can call. It's area code 317-232-4002.
In world news, the diplomatic war between the United States and the Soviet Union is winding down tonight. The U.S. State Department has not expelled any more Soviet diplomats, but the government has withdrawn American employees from the Soviet embassies. Yesterday, the Soviet government withdrew 260 maids and mechanics from the American embassies in the Soviet Union. A State Department spokesman says it's time to deal with larger issues. In Springfield, Missouri today, President Reagan talked about some of those larger issues. Mr. Reagan vowed to keep alive his arms control offers from the Iceland summit. The president's comments came as he began a two-day, four-state political blitz for Republican hopefuls. Auto sales figures for the third quarter of the year were released today, and only the Ford Motor Company had reason to smile widely. Ford was the only one of the big three to show a profit in the third quarter, a whopping 121% over last year. The increase is attributed to a model mix. And earnings for many Americans were also up last month, according to the government. But at the same time, most of us spent more, too. The government says consumer prices were up 0.3% in September, and that is enough to push third quarter inflation to an annual rate of 2.2%.
A monument to 241 Marines has been dedicated at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. The granite monument contains the names of the Marines killed in a Beirut bombing of their camp 3 years ago, plus the names of 3 Marine pilots killed in the October '83 invasion of Grenada. More than 400 family members were there.
You know, you sit here and you listen to all the beautiful speeches and you say, God, why did they have to be gone? Why the speeches? I'd rather have the sun back.
The monument was built totally through donations from all over the country.
Coming up on Channel 6 News, Ted Turner defends his rejuvenation of the old black and whites.
And Tracy Horace speaks with two of the victims of Monday night's attack at a Northside gymnasium.
This is Reed Duffy. Duffy's Diner tonight travels to Greencastle to eat with a different drummer. Coming up on Channel 6 News.
4 young men face a host of charges tonight.
These charges stem from a robbery and confinement of 11 attorneys earlier this week. Under arrest tonight, 21-year-old Craig Cartwright, 16-year-old Rodney Shelton, 16-year-old Kenneth Lewis, and 17-year-old Damon Walker. Police say the 4 broke in on a basketball game at St. Joan of Arc Monday night, pistol whipped 2 men, and kicked several others. Tonight, 2 victims talked with Tracy Horton about the ordeal.
I thought we would be held up really pretty quickly. I thought they would just take everything and leave quickly, but that really wasn't what happened.
What did happen? For more than 20 minutes, 11 men who had gathered each Monday for a couple of years to play basketball were forced to lie face down, strip, take verbal lashings.
The ringleader, I guess, at that point was just screaming and hollering at us that white people hate black people and that this was his street and that he just wanted our money.
And suffer more physical abuse.
He kicked you in the head?
He kicked me in the head, yeah.
These 2 victims ask we not use their names since their wallets and keys were stolen. They told me there was never the thought of disobeying their captor's orders.
When the guy's got a gun, right, standing over you with a gun, claiming he's going to kill you, you strip.
Did he say, "I'm going to kill you"?
Yes,
several times.
Many times, yes. Screaming and kicking people and saying he's going to kill us.
The men consider themselves very lucky.
All has returned to normal here at St. Joan of Arc's gym. In fact, there's quite a bit of demand for this space, from 5th and 6th graders practicing their basketball skills to groups of people who want to stop by after work and play for a while. But there's one group of attorneys who won't be coming back.
I don't think we'll be returning there to play basketball on Monday nights anymore.
Tracy Horth, Channel 6 News.
More crime news this evening. We start with a former Indiana fugitive who is now in the hands of Florida lawmen. Former Indiana State Trooper Jerry Cliver made his initial appearance in a Florida courtroom today. Cliver is wanted in Indiana for the attempted murder of his ex-wife and for the murder of her boyfriend. He was apprehended in Florida 2 weeks ago after a shootout with police. Cliver goes on trial in Florida after the first of the year. 15 members of a Teamsters local in Edinburgh were cited for contempt of court today in Johnson Circuit Court. The action comes as a bitter strike at the David Webb Company continues into its 14th week. The 15 were cited for violating a restraining order prohibiting violence and limiting pickets at the plant. The fines ranged from 20 hours of community service to $500. And several Indianapolis apartment complexes have been ordered to pay their sewer bills or have the water shut off. Vantage Point and several others have accumulated unpaid bills of more than $20,000. Under a new city ordinance, the Department of Public Works can shut off the water of any customer more than 60 days behind in their payments. 48 notices have been mailed out so far, and all 48 have agreed to pay in full.
Coming up on Channel 6 News, Bob McLain has a look at the forecast for tomorrow. But first, it's off to Washington State, where Mount St. Helens is rumbling again. Out west in Washington State, a non-explosive eruption is underway, Mount St. Helens. The dome of the volcano began expanding yesterday, and it's been accompanied by a plume of white smoke more than 3,000 feet into the air. Experts believe there is little chance for another eruption like the one back in 1980. There's a terrific amount of energy that comes out of those things.
Well, there certainly is. You don't realize the power of nature until you see something like a volcano or a hurricane or a tornado. There is a great deal of energy. Not too much energy in our atmosphere tonight. It's fairly quiet, but at least it's mild for this time of October. Cloudy, 57 degrees, just a hint, as you can see, of a wind out of the west at 3 miles per hour. The humidity is high, and the barometer is rising just a little bit. Well, we have the low clouds overhead, so we don't expect much movement on the thermometer tonight because the clouds act like a blanket pulled over by Mother Nature, keeping the heat that's radiating from the surface of the earth trapped below the cloud deck. Temperatures are fairly uniform, as you can see, with readings generally in the mid to upper 60s, with just a light southwest to westerly breeze at about 5 or 6 miles per hour. Every so often there's a little patch of drizzle or a little fog that reduces visibility down to about 2 miles, but nothing of significance. Really, we're on the northeastern edge of a big area of cloudiness. You can see from our satellite photo that extends from eastern Texas on up through our area and then continues into the mid-Atlantic coastal states. This is just the beginning of a storm system that's taking shape that will move in a northeasterly fashion, bringing lots of tropical moisture with it, and of course that will result in an unsettled weather pattern. By contrast, the weather pattern is fairly quiet through the northern plain states. Now, we are picking up a little rain from just southwest of Salem, Oregon to Klamath Falls, Oregon, down into around and north of Redding, California, as another weather system tries to punch into the western portion of the United States. But here's the main area of precipitation now getting underway as the area of low pressure just beginning to take shape now in the western Gulf of Mexico. And all of this will begin to slide northeasterly as the winds are coming around, steering this to the northeast, and will gradually push it in a northeasterly fashion toward our region. All the delightful weather we've had the past few days sort of wrapped up in this area of high pressure, high clouds increasing along the eastern portion of the United States, giving way to thicker and lower clouds over much of our area. And there it is. There's the developing storm just east of Brownsville in the western Gulf of Mexico. It will move slowly in a northeasterly fashion, and right now it looks like very good odds for the likelihood of rain beginning probably Friday night and continuing on an on-again, off-again basis on to Saturday. There you can see the low just north of Tupelo and east of Memphis. By late tomorrow afternoon, it will begin to spread the rain into the middle Mississippi River Valley and the Ohio River Valley. Winds tomorrow generally out of an east to northeasterly direction. As you can see throughout all of Indiana, it will be cloudy and temperatures just about normal. Well, today our high was right on the money, exactly normal, 63 degrees, but the low this morning was a very warm 55 degrees. Here's the forecast now for tonight. Cloudy skies, mild temperatures, maybe a few patches of drizzle floating by at times as temperatures dip down low to mid-50s. Then for tomorrow, cloudy. There is a risk of some patches of rain with highs anywhere from near 60 to the mid-60s. But Saturday, a much better chance of occasional rain under cloudy skies and highs in the upper 50s to low 60s. And on Saturday itself, Pleasant View, which is about 13 miles southeast of Indianapolis, will be celebrating its sesquicentennial all day on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10 o'clock in the evening. And hopefully they'll be able to get their parade in the afternoon.
They're counting on you, Bob.
We'll work on it.
All right.
You'll come through. Television entrepreneur Ted Turner is making news tonight. Turner and his Superstation have been colorizing old vintage black and white films. Many directors are opposed to the process, saying movies like Casablanca, Yankee Doodle Dandy, and The Maltese Falcon should remain as they are. Turner's reply, the last time I checked, I own the rights and I can do what I want.
Vintage Ted Turner. Coming up, Duffy's Diner travels to Greencastle, but coming up next, Ed Sorensen has the latest on the newest Colts, and we'll hear what Don Shula has to say about his troubled Dolphins.
Now to Ed Sorensen, and we have a new Colt.
A new Colt that knows how to win. Maybe some of that will rub off. Good evening. The Colts signed themselves a guy with some pretty glossy credentials today when they got Dwight Hicks to agree to a contract. With the addition of Hicks, the free agent free safety, the Colts had to let somebody go. That somebody turned out to be wide receiver Wayne Capers. He is gone and Dwight Hicks is in. Hicks is a guy who's experienced the ultimate in pro football. He's played in 4 Pro Bowls, and he played on both San Francisco 49er teams that won Super Bowls in the last 5 years. But he doesn't consider the 0-7 Colts to be a lost cause.
When I went to the 49ers in 1979, they were 2-14 that year, and I came midway through that season, and the next year we were 6-10, and then the next year we won the Super Bowl. So things can turn around very quickly.
Things turned around very quickly in a bad way last summer for Hicks, who worked out at the Dome today. The 6'1", 192-pounder who played collegiately at Michigan had played 7 seasons with the Niners. He got involved in a contract dispute, then revealed he'd been doing coke for the past 5 years. Then the 49ers let him go. Today he said the drug habit is a thing of the past for Dwight Hicks, and he talked about it.
I realized I made a mistake, and you know, I'm back on the right path and just ready to get into football again and start a new career.
Well, the Colts-Dolphins game set for 1 p.m. Sunday at the Hoosier Dome is already a sellout, believe it or not, so there will be local television of the game, despite the fact we're talking about two teams with a combined record of 2-12. This is going to be the second and final meeting this year between these two AFC East rivals. On the second Sunday of the season, I'm sure you all remember, the Dolphins pounded the Colts 33-10 in the Orange Bowl in that fateful game in which the Colts lost Gary Hogeboom for the year. The Fish have fried the Colts the last 12 times they've met. That's the longest current string of domination in the NFL. But you know, the Dolphins, a perennial power in the league, have really fallen on hard times. They got the worst defense in the league, and Don Shula said earlier this week things that sounded like what we've been hearing from Rod Dowhauer on any given Monday this year. I can't believe Shula's 2-5, and I don't think he believes it either, folks.
Yeah, we got to have some good things happen to us. We got to work during the week and then get some production on game day, and that's what hasn't been happening to us except on two occasions when we beat the Colts earlier in the year and then against Buffalo 2 weeks ago. You had a feeling that some good things were starting to happen, but you got to get that done week in and week out. We haven't been able to. We just haven't shown any consistency, and instead, when you look at the bottom line of the game yesterday, you see that we gave up the football 4 times and didn't get it at all, and this is what's been happening to us in the games that we've played poorly, the 5 losses that we've had.
Don Shula referring to that Raiders loss last Sunday. Still hurts to watch that play. The NHL season is only a few weeks old, but what a matchup tonight in Philadelphia. Let's go quickly to the highlights. The Flyers in white, 5-0, entertaining Pittsburgh. The Penguins came in at 7-0 atop the Patrick division. These were the only 2 teams in the NHL still unbeaten heading into this game. And right here, Mark Howe slaps one in for the Flyers, who went on to post a 5-3 victory tonight. They are now 6-0. This is the 23rd straight time in the last 12 years the Penguins, getting a goal there from Mario Lemieux, have lost at the Spectrum. Lemieux, hot on the heels of Wayne Gretzky as the finest player in the NHL, has 11 goals. And we are in the top of the 8th at Fenway, Game 5 of the World Series, 4-0, Bo Sox on top of the Mets.
All right. When we come back, we'll have a look at what's making news tomorrow. Bob McLain has the morning forecast, and Duffy's Diner heads to Greencastle to check out the Different Drummer restaurant. Here's what's making news tomorrow. If you live in Speedway, you may hear quite a bang in the early afternoon. State Fire Marshal is planning to blow off confiscated illegal fireworks. At 5 on Channel 6 News, our Medical Matters takes a look at the number of recent studies on substance abuse. We're going to take a look at what alcohol, marijuana, and cocaine do to your body. And Reed Duffy reviews the Paul Newman Tom Cruise movie, The Color of Money. Bob?
Well, it should be kind of dreary to start off the Friday morning with, again, pretty good display of cloudiness. And it looks like there may even be a couple of patches of drizzle around with temperatures at 8 o'clock in the mid to upper 50s. Howard?
Duffy's Diner tonight finds Reed Duffy and friends heading toward Greencastle, marching to the fork of the Different Drummer.
The Different Drummer is the restaurant for the 6-month-old Walden Inn, adjacent to the DePaul University campus in Greencastle, a sprightly country inn concept started by a dozen DePaul alums who lured Irish-born chef Matthew O'Neill from the Crystal Room in Indianapolis to serve as innkeeper and chef, with the Different Drummer providing a cozy colonial look and a menu that can be best described as American continental, offering a range from sautéed lobster to pan-fried catfish, prices in the $9 to $15 range. Joining photographer Lowell Davis and me were Jack Rhodes of Indianapolis and his mother, Nina Rhodes, visiting from Fort Wayne. All this courtesy of the Channel 20 auction. Our very friendly servers, Darla Licklider and Allison Shepard, kick-started this reporter with an excellent rendition of that golden nectar French onion soup, a very hearty oniony broth covered with very generous dollops of cheese. Jack was quite taken with the spinach salad with its tasty hot bacon dressing over such additives as red onions, croutons, mushrooms, and chopped eggs. For dinner, Nina zeroed in on the prime rib, the petite cut for $11.75, finding the beef exceptionally tender, lean, and flavorful, nicely and tastefully set off by sliced potatoes and mushrooms. Son Jack checked out the sautéed lobster with the ever-exotic sweetbreads for $16. The hefty lobster sauté then simmered in white wine, mushrooms, and tomatoes, producing what Jack found to be a very flavorful dish. The lobster absorbing the sautéed seasonings in a most pleasing way. I took on the loin of lamb for $15.75, the very tender, lean lamb cut encased in puff pastry, coated in spinach and mushrooms. The pastry very delicate and working well with the tasty lamb. Devotees of lamb should exhilarate in this dish. Mr. Davis ordered the carousel of lamb and veal seasoned and sautéed in a sweet and sour sauce, with the emphasis on the sweet, providing a tasty fruit flavoring that Lowell found went especially well with the veal medallions. A solid entree at $15.75. In all, we found the different drummer at the Walden Inn in Greencastle well worth the journey from Indianapolis, with Chef O'Neill displaying the same golden culinary touch that marked his popular efforts at the Crystal Room. The different drummer is open for breakfast and lunch and dinner 5 to 9 Sunday through Thursday till 10 weekends. And yes, Chef O'Neill still lays on his unconscionable desserts. It certainly didn't weigh on Jack Rhodes' conscience. He took the approach that mother knows best. Who am I to argue? Reed Duffy, Channel 6 News.
But Duffy ran all the way home just to work off that dinner.
I doubt it.
That's our news. We'll see you tomorrow at 5. Good night.